It's a Final Word Daily here at the Oval on day 4 of the third test match between England and South Africa. I'm Adam Collins, he's Daniel Norcross. We're here for the Advanced Test Studio, the world leaders in hair restoration. Another wild day at the office, just another normal day at the office really. Tell us all about it in 30 seconds.
Well, Ollie Robinson was tasked with batting with Ben Foakes to try and get a lead up above 100. So naturally, the first thing he did was smash a ball straight down the throat of mid-off of his first ball of the day. England surrendered meekly, had a lead of just 40. South Africa went out to bat. They showed a lot of good ticker. Elgar, Cyril Irwin put the fight back to England. But when Elgar didn't refer an LBW that was going down, South Africa imploded. England needing 130 to win, got to 97 when, of course, the idiotic bad light rules from yesterday came into force and meant that this massive large crowd didn't get to see the end of the match.
Yeah, so, well, basically England will come back tomorrow with 33 to win. I understand, and your program Test Match Special explained this quite well then, and they did it over the loudspeaker too. The umpires don't have latitude in that situation. What the meter says in the day before, when they've decided to go off, that will dictate when they go off in subsequent days.
Well, it went off too early yesterday.
Which is the problem.
A little bit.
Which is the issue.
Yep.
Well, maybe
only one issue. Maybe by 15, 20 minutes.
I was going to say, somewhere in the margins yesterday, maybe that extra 15 minutes, they probably would have got the job done, given the intent they were showing. Zak Crawley. The man we've been talking about all summer for all the wrong reasons. He's 57 not out from 44 balls. Talk about making a point and exactly at the right moment in his career, because had he failed again here, I doubt he was going to Pakistan. And he's there with Alex Lees, who will wake up tomorrow on 32. They're none for 97 from just 17 overs, a run rate of 5.7 in that chase. Lees was dropped first ball of it, at 130, but if you're one down from the first ball, and it should have been, Marco Jansen has done most things right through the series, putting down a catch off Rabada. So we're starting at the back of the day before going to the start again, but that felt significant. They snaffle Lees there, and the pressure straight back on England, not to be.
Well, it is, because no side's going to get above 200 in this match.
Yeah,
so
this series.
They've done it. There have been 2 scores above 200 in the entire series, that's right. So in what is that, 10 innings there will have been. It's a bit extraordinary, hasn't it, the way the batting's gone. So that's another reason why I'm delighted for Zak Crawley, really, because we've singled him out. And he's got the toughest job in cricket at the moment, which is opening the batting in England. The averages for openers across this summer, I believe, is 21 and a bit before this innings, or this night, and actually the second innings as well. So of South Africa. So they've been the anomalies in this series. Opening batters are averaging 21 and Crawley was averaging 15. So he wasn't really performing that much worse than most of the other openers. He was just, he was in a difficult job. But what he's probably done is made himself a cool £1 million from a central contract by getting that 50. And
they're on the 1st of October, aren't they, the central contracts? So it's a good time to make a score.
Very good time. And it was actually a lovely innings. Played some very aggressive shots. That's what he's best at doing. I think he's got into a muddle, actually, in his last couple of innings. The 38 he got was very stodgy in the previous match, in England's victory by an innings. And then the 5 he got in the first innings seemed to last forever. And he was trying to adopt a different approach and prove he could hang in there. Actually, they don't want to see that. They've said they don't expect him to be consistent. They want to see him creaming cover drives. He played one back foot cover drive, which was dreamy, absolutely fantastic. And it meant that because they went so hard, and this is right, we hate the word Bazball, but this is what Bazball is about. It's that when faced with a target of 130, you go after it. I remember back in Abu Dhabi, I think it was in 2012, England needed something like 120 odd, 130 odd to win, and they crawled to 78 all out in about 50 overs. Now, this side wouldn't do that. It would have said, right, spin's the problem, we're just going to have to take it on. And once you crunch a few boundaries, it forces the opposition captain to think differently. And, we hate the word, but the momentum is with you in the batting. It shifts the power balance, it shifts the dynamic, you're on the front foot. And that's what Stokes wants his team to be all the time, that they're the ones on the front foot regardless of the match situation.
Yeah, and quietly, Lees gets a reprieve as well, because even though, he's been the better performer of the 2 openers, it's been a while between scores for him. I think he made a half century, was it in the final test, the India test? So we've got to go
back a bit.
6 weeks or so since the last time he made a noteworthy contribution. Some good runs along the way against New Zealand, but nevertheless, had he been out first ball here, they might have had their head turned a wee bit about what's going on in the County Championship in the last few weeks.
Well, it tends to happen, doesn't it? That an opener gets the full English summer, and then they're discarded and don't come back.
Well,
he'd have been aware of that. He'd have thought of the people like Lythe,
Alex Hales,
Sam Robson.
Sam Robson.
There have been quite a few of them. They're there. and then like Kaiser Sose, they're gone.
Let's go back to the middle session because, actually, you know what? Let's go to the very start of the day. Because you mentioned England throwing away the chance to build a big lead, only adding 4 runs to their overnight tally. Then they start poorly with the ball, and I'll caveat that by saying they didn't do an awful lot wrong with it initially. It was more that it just looked a fraction flatter. They were trying to get the ball changed within 12 overs. Anderson was up talking to, I think it was umpire Menon, getting the ball passed through the rings.
They tried it 5 times, They tried to get the ball changed 5 times. Which
said a bit about the mindset, doesn't it? When you're the fielding team trying to get the ball changed on the reg, there probably is something that's not quite going your way. They knock off the deficit, or what was left of it, in about 12 overs. They go to lunch at 70 for 1, and they lose 1 wicket. Of course, it's Ben Stokes, golden bollocks, brings himself into the attack just before the break and finds an outside edge within like 4 deliveries. Of course he does.
But South Africa are ahead.
But they're in a good.
But
I was going to say, I would say, I would have had it at that point in the Test match, knowing that England are batting 4th. South Africa are leading the Test match. If you're looking at WinViz or something like that, then England have an exhilarating session, as they've done so often through not only this series but against New Zealand and indeed against India. They've had the ability to have monster sessions with the ball. 6 for 77 they took, and it was the old firm. It was Anderson and Broad. The adage about throwing the ball to your 2 best bowlers after lunch. Well, that's exactly what Ben Stokes did. Anderson only got 1 wicket in that stretch, but could have been several. He bowled beautifully. And Broad down the other end. He got in Elgar's head, it felt a little bit. 2 shouts for leg before. They'd already burnt 2 reviews. They didn't review one that Broad wanted to go upstairs for. And then he hits Elgar in line with middle and leg. It's missing leg stump comfortably. And I suppose a combination of the celebra appeal, the finger going up with the appeal. And Elgar just walked off, and you mentioned it in your summary, but that proved to be quite the turning point in the day.
It was key. It was really weird, actually, because the moment the ball thudded onto Elgar's pad, he started walking. He thought, oh, no.
I mean, it looked out, didn't it? It felt out just because I think the appeal and the energy.
It looked out from our angle because we're watching from behind.
Yeah.
So with Elgar, right in front of the stumps, you can't be sure where the impact is from where we're sitting. And so it felt that the 2 previous ones felt wrong for height. This one was a fair bit fuller.
Much fuller,
Much fuller. Hit him on the shin. So you're going, oh, right. Well, he's gone. Surely. And then we see the replay. The very, very first time I saw it front on, I went, oh, hang on.
And then they took about 3 minutes to play a second replay. I think they must have gone to a commercial break because I saw the same replay and I think, wow, hang on.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's not out. And then they confirmed it with technology when they showed, the Hawkeye projection. And by that point, Elgar's, having a shower. And there's no...
Too late.
There was no consideration of a review.
Well, yeah, his partner didn't say anything to him either, which was interesting. It would have been Peterson at the time, wouldn't it? Keegan Peterson. Which I guess is because, Dean Elgar's the captain. And these organisations are a little hierarchical. They are quite top down. And maybe Keegan Peterson didn't... Or maybe he didn't see it because you're at a slight angle as well. Maybe he felt like the whole shape of it. I think part of it was because Elgar was his head was tilted over and he's playing around that pad.
And I think he's watching it back as well. I think his boot pulled across the turf. Like he might have looked at where it was and had to guess where like his foot wasn't where impact was made by the time the appeal was being delivered.
I don't think he entirely knew where his off stump was because it had been a very scratchy innings from Elgar. It has been. Look, he's not the most pretty batter to watch. But he's really struggled. But then I say that, and I started a moment ago by saying opening the batting is intensely difficult in England at the moment. So, of course, he looks scratchy, and he's being hit a lot. He's got this closed bat face. They were forever coming round the wicket at him, and it must be frustrating because, he's a professional sportsman who's become good at cricket by hitting cricket balls. But when you get really good, the opponents have plans for you, so they take all the fun out of it for you. They just come around the wicket and cramp you. So he's had really very little to hit. There was the occasional loose ball because England did bowl well. I mean, they beat the bat a lot, even when they weren't taking wickets. And unlike the first day, those balls weren't just feathering the edge; they were going past the edge quite comfortably each time. So it was hard to watch. It was an ugly-looking innings, and I felt that he was never in control at any point, and that's sort of why I went off. But it precipitated the collapse that decided the game, really. And it was look, Broad and Anderson were absolutely magnificent, but we've got to again look at Ollie Robinson and Ben Stokes, because Ben Stokes didn't bowl in the first innings. He brought himself on. England are in trouble when he brings himself on. They hadn't picked up a wicket and South Africa were ahead. As you said, golden bollocks, comes straight in, takes a wicket. But then after the Broad Anderson spell hadn't quite sort of burst through all of the South African lineup. The moment there was just a little bit of resolve again, out comes Stokes, and he bowls this. He takes a wicket off a no ball. He's looking exhausted. He's limping. He has to go off for an over. We wondered if we were going to find out who the vice captain was, but sneakily, Stuart Broad bowled just that one over with the field already set. And just as we thought, who's it going to be? Because Stokes had gone off, so who's going to get to bowl? Surely we'll now find out oh no, Stokes is walking back down the steps. So the mystery continues.
No fun, Ben, no fun. Yeah, I mean, that stretch between Broad and Anderson, remembering when Broad starts his first wicket taking over, he's had 27 runs taken from his first 4. I mean, Kevin Peterson on telly was sacking him, I mean, as is the custom. Maybe not quite sacking him, but you know what I'm trying to say. He's bowling dollies at him. He was really getting after him on comms, and I think that reflected the energy of the first session. England were suddenly finding themselves behind in a test match that they bossed much of yesterday.
Tables have been turned.
Tables have been turned. Then Broad has that fabulous over, ends up picking up Elgar down the other end. Peterson edges Anderson to Pope. Excellent diving catch at probably 4th slip. I think there were 4 or 5 slips.
4th, really good catch.
In at the time, and he's a very good player, Keegan Peterson, out for 23. At that stage, 91 for 3. Then Rickleton, who's not looks like it at all in this test match, is Broad's second wicket. He reviews, a comical review really. That was hitting middle stump halfway up. Broad.
If Elgar's not reviewing, you're wondering what?
Yeah, I suppose that's right. And Rickleton was pretty much at the boundary edge by the time we saw the projection. Then there was that resistance, and it took Robinson and Stokes. They were the relief pitchers, if you like, in that setup after Anderson and Broad bowled for about an hour together. And it's so predictable with both of those guys. It seems like at the moment, when either of them start a new spell, they invariably pick up a wicket. And so they did. Stokes finished bowling 13 overs in totality across 2 spells. But yeah, Robinson, I think I said with Broad yesterday, as if it were foretold, he gets into the attack, gets a wicket. It felt exactly the same for Robinson today, who initially he goes through Mulder's defence for 14. And then just before tea, there's that no ball wicket that you referred to with Stokes. He's firing up. Couple of balls later, Castle's Marco Jansen, and at tea they're 147 for 7. And the only conversation we were having over our sandwiches at tea is, will this be over in 2 days? I mean, the sense of any competition by that point had gone, all in a session.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, isn't it? It leaves a weird taste in the mouth though, because the speed at which these games have been dominated by one side or the other. It was exciting when South Africa got back into it. And you started to think, South Africa are batting at the end of the day, but they're maybe 7 down.
Perfect.
It could be England chasing 230 on the last day. They'll have to go after it against a really good pace attack, but 130 was never going to be enough. And a feature of today actually was what makes things feel sometimes a little bit more meek is the number of bolds there were.
Yeah.
A lot of times players were castled, and I think actually, in fairness to them, that was a function of the pitch, which has had a sizable amount of assistance for seam bowlers, and the expertise of the wobble seamers. Robinson bowls a terrific wobble seam. He gets it to jag back sharply, and Maharaj's dismissal was a great example of Maharaj was actually playing the right line, but the ball just cut so far. He couldn't adjust in time, and it kissed the top of the middle stump. It caused me to be really infuriated again because I couldn't see the bails come off. Please give me some zinc bails or black ones or something, I don't know, just not green ones.
Between now and next season we can start a campaign. So that was Broad's 7th wicket of the match. He ends up with 3 for 45. He overtook Glenn McGrath today as well. There was a nice moment where he got the whole, he didn't hold the ball aloft, he just waved to the crowd all 4 points to acknowledge that he'd gone past that 500.
That's the thing though, isn't it? Isn't that weird though? Because it's not a number like 600 or 550.
It's Glenn McGrath.
Someone's already gone past Glenn McGrath.
True.
But Glenn McGrath is such an important figure to seam bowlers. He's a patron saint of people like Stephen Finn, for example. They have posters of him on their walls.
Broad said it was his hero growing up.
Exactly. He is the hero. So if you go past Glenn McGrath, that's almost like more important than getting to 600.
Stokes finishes with 3 for 39 from 13. Figures, I feel like he's returned 3 for 39 from 13 about 6 times this summer. He's been so effective with the ball. Robinson 2 for 40 from his 15, and Anderson got one at the end. Verena, the wicketkeeper, skied one up, so he ends up with 2 for 37 from 15.2, but bowled. Well, I said it yesterday. He could have been the guy with 4 or 5 next to his name. Anderson bowled so well, running up.
Still
from
no
the
5 for at the Oval.
Still no 5 for at the Oval. Nor Manchester. That's quite odd that there's 2 grounds in England he hasn't got a 5 for at.
Well, and I think both those grounds are hosting Ashes Test matches next year. I just put that out there.
Look, then we already touched on the partnership that was had between Crawley and Lees, but you mentioned the was it the back foot push or the
Yes,
back foot drive?
back foot drive. Oh,
the favourite
dreamy.
from the lot I saw. I was sitting up in the pavilion on the balcony there in the final session when they started off, and so I was right behind the on drive he played, Crawley, on about 10, about the best on drive I've seen this summer. So what it does, because obviously Crawley shouldn't be picked at the moment, right, on the basis of all the usual conventions, right? But he plays like that, and it makes you purr, and it makes you wonder how he's not delivering to the extent to which his talent would suggest he should. He's going to prove a fascinating and frustrating cricketer. He'll probably, I suspect, over his test career, remembering he's pretty young, he'll probably have days where he is a true world beater and we think he could be anything. And then we already know that he can bat in a way and be dismissed in a way not too dissimilar to James Vince, which makes you feel like he's a liability and hasn't got the right discipline and the right degree of control above the shoulders to make it at the top flight. He's going to bamboozle us for years.
Do you want a hot take?
Yep.
I predict that at some point in the next 3 years, Harry Brook will open and Zak Crawley will bat at 5.
Well, there you go. You heard it here first.
Yeah, that probably won't happen, but it kind of makes sense to me.
I think it's time that we go speedily to the Final Word Hall of Fame. The Final Word Hall of Fame is for the Advanced Test Studio. They've been with us all summer, Daniel. advancedteststudio.com/final word, 15% off. All you need to do, pop in your details, and one of their expert consultants, they've dealt with more than 1 million people across 3 decades. They're a serious operation, 100% guarantee. They'll get straight in touch. All you need to do, details in, and then, because you're friends with Daniel and me through the podcast, you will get that 15% discount. And I stress, not just in Australia or England, where the majority of people who listen to this podcast are from, but all over. If you're watching on YouTube in some other part of the world, cricketing or otherwise, Advanced Test Studio are well represented across the world. So jump on advancedteststudio.com/final word. And we're going to be doing daily shows from the England-India Women's One Day Series starting next week, but we're getting towards the end of the summer. So if this was something you were thinking about, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, this would be a good time to jump on and have a look.
It really would. But you got me thinking there. I wonder which is the country which has the most follically challenged people in it.
What about in the cricketing world?
In the cricketing world,
'Cause
New
usually-
Zealand often have a few issues with hair.
Thinking Chris Harris across
Yes, I am. I'm thinking, did Blundell have much hair? Didn't feel like he had.
No.
Mitchell didn't.
What we would
I
give
think
to-
that was a relatively hairless partnership.
What we would
that.
give to watch Blundell and
Yeah.
Mitchell bat at the moment. It
Oh,
shows
we
some
really
resistance.
would.
Because
Yeah.
that's going to be the genesis of our Hall of Fame today. Let's have a stat splurge. On the way through to
Come
it.
on.
On the
Give
way
me them
through to
all.
it, I'm just going to note a couple of things. One
Yep.
is that, it's statty. Jimmy today not out for the 106th time in Test cricket. By a mile the most not outs. We had a nerd pledge about this the other week. He was on 98 or something during the Ashes last year, and he's been racking them up with some regularity this summer. Stuart Broad having the pads on, ready to come out number 3 if they lost the wicket today. Will the Nighthawk ever truly be deployed? Well, not this summer, he won't. But
what's the
we can
signal
dare to
for a
dream.
Nighthawk? Jonathan Agnew thinks the signal should be this. I'll have to go across to you, and then you tap my wrist, tap my wrist like that. That's the hawk. Bring the hawk. Bring the hawk.
The head of the hawk. Maybe next year, Stu, if he's still going around, and he probably will be given the way that he bowled in this series. Well, let's actually go there, shall we? So this is all courtesy of Zoltz or Sampson. The majority of it is from Zoltz. In 2022, in this Test summer, Broad's taken 29 wickets at 27. Anderson took 27 at 17.6. 40-year-old. Ollie Robinson took his 50th Test wicket today, 51st as well. 11 Test matches to get there, so one of the quickest ever for England at an average of better than 20.
Better than 20.
Right, many have done it. I think Finney did it in 10, but at a higher average, something like that. South Africa, just 1/2 century in 3 Tests. Now, across all 3 Test match series, that's only happened 8 times. So again, it gives you
They've
a sense
only had 1/2 century in the 3 Tests.
Yeah,
wow.
That was Irvia in the first Test at Lords because Elgar made 40 odd.
Right.
Yep. So their batting average across the series was 17.6, which is the worst for a touring team, with the exception of one Pakistan tour I couldn't quite hear on my headset, but the worst for sort of 50 odd years. Shall we keep going? There's so much
Why
here.
not?
If England knock it off comfortably tomorrow, this is a good one from Zoltz. It'll only be the 5th time the side's won a Test match when batting fewer than 60 overs in totality.
Yeah, I think they need to wrap this up in about 4 or 5 overs to do that, which they easily could do.
Which they will.
Yeah. Yep.
It's the 8th time that the first 2 innings of a Test match have ended in the same number of overs.
That was lovely. 36.2. Loved that.
And the way that the next bit out of that is that it's the fourth shortest combined collective first innings in Test history at 72.4 overs. If you're wondering, the worst was about 200 odd balls between England and Australia at the MCG in 1901-02.
Yes, I remember that.
I think the two talismanic bowlers for their respective nations, Barnes and Noble, which of course is a bookshop.
A bookshop, yeah.
In the States. There you go.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Second time this summer that both teams in their first innings were bowled out in fewer than 45 overs. The other, we've got to go back to New Zealand and England,
right.
The first Test match of the summer. 1907 was the last time that 3 innings in a Test match were completed quicker than this, 129 overs.
I mean, that's basically supposed to be about an hour after lunch on day 2.
Yeah, 3 innings completed. And no centuries by openers in the Test summer for men, all up. Now, there have been 101 English Test summers where more than 3 Test matches have been played. Only once before have there been no hundreds by openers, and that was the 3 Test Ashes summer of 1888.
Which is
exhale.
That is a notoriously difficult series to bat in, was 1888. And I think
a wet one.
2018 had a similar thing going on. I think it wasn't until this Oval Test when Cook got 100 and Rahul, did he get 100?
In the 4th innings, that's right.
I think those are the only 2 hundreds by openers in that year as well.
It's a trend.
It's definitely a trend.
Especially in this country.
So, lay off Crawley and Lees. I'm not sure if I'll be able to maintain that, but yeah, we should do.
We're going to have one more daily show tomorrow, another rambling edition, I'm sure. Adam Collins, Daniel Norcross, thanks for listening. Thanks to the advancedhairstudio.com/final word, 15% off. Take a look. They are indeed the world leaders in hair restoration. To our production team, both in Melbourne and in London, thanks for your support. We'll do it one more time tomorrow, where England have 33 runs to win. Till then, good night.
Good night.